Welcome to my MAT chat. My name is Jasmine Smith. I am a first year master in athletic training student at North Central College. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Ms. Vency Haynes. She is an assistant athletic trainer at Howard University. So I want to start off by thank you for joining me. Um, so first question, just starting off, what led you into a career as an athletic trainer?
Well, I've been playing sports since I was like 9 years old. My dream was always to go to the pros as any other kid. I played basketball just like my dad. I also did track, so I was kind of like a dual sport athlete growing up, and then I just stuck with basketball because my dad, like I said, my dad played basketball. And I love my athletic trainer, Kayla. I remember her name from high school. She was very um, approachable. She was very knowledgeable. She was very compassionate with her athletes. She took care of them to the best of her ability. Um, and I always told myself one or two things. I'm going to end up with sports somewhere or another. So I didn't ended up, the traditional route as far as like playing like collegiate sports, but I did find a new love, a way to be introduced to sport, or still be with sports with medicine. I just had a love for the body. I love like learning different things. Like my parents used to always say, like I just do everything. So like I said, I guess being, around Kayla, my high school athletic trainer, just kind of made me intrigued to want to know more about this field. And that's when I ended up becoming a student AT when I was at Florida A&M University as an undergrad student. And I just love just marrying the two, like, my love for medicine and my love for sports. I just continued on in that career.
Okay. So what is your background? Like, what schools did you attend?
So, undergrad, I attended Florida A&M University, where I got my bachelor's in free physical therapy, which was originally was supposed to be my route. I was supposed to go to physical therapy, but somewhere along the line, when I just started volunteering with athletic training, the athletic training staff, and getting to know the staff and knowing the ins and outs of being around the day-to-day daily tasks as far as like setting up the practice field and making sure players are hydrated, I just kind of fell in love with it. So I ended up just going like the master's route and pursuing athletic training.
Okay. Okay. So, as a Black woman and a graduate of a historically Black college or university myself, I know how important it was for me personally to attend one and the experience it gave me. So, what made you to either decide working at Howard, or how did you end up working there?
So my story is very different from, it may be similar to some people, but I didn't go the traditional route as far as like my job placement per se. Um, Coming out of grad school, where I graduated from Florida International University, which was, I think, the only master's program at the time in the South Florida area. I mean, had an athletic training program, but I don't think they had an official master's yet, a full time master's yet. So going there, graduating, I want to say in about 2017, spring of 2017. I didn't go right into the profession. It was very hard to find work down there. It was such a um, high demand but low supply, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
So I ended up, finding a job in like sports equipment, where I worked for like 2.5 years, and I always kept running into like athletes. It was like the craziest thing. Like I would run into like professional athletes, especially where my job was. I was running into professional athletes, like doctors who worked around sports, high schools that wanted us to as a contractor to for their equipment and things of that nature. And I was like, wow, like I really wish I was in this profession. But I was like, I always tell myself that um, timing is everything. Um,
Hmm.
so I left Florida and moved to Chicago, where I tried to pursue like, jobs in athletic training. And around that time, pandemic hit, so they weren't allowing anybody, they were hiring anybody honestly at the time. But I ended up working at a physical therapy clinic, just kind of showcasing some of my athletic training skills. I still ended up working with athletes that were there. And so I was like, okay, at some point I have to land a job somewhere. Then, once things didn't really pan out in Chicago, I was just like, okay, let me just make another face move. So I moved to the DMV. I didn't originally land a job in athletic training, but somewhere around that, I just kind of pursued like my personal training certification. So I worked personal training for like a year and a half, and then I ended up at a school that, kind of as like a contractor, part-time PRN, like at a private, I think I want to say it's like 6th to 12th grade.
Mhm.
And I was doing like PRN work there. And then, this Howard job, literally, I always tell people, I don't know where this Howard job came from. Like, literally, I was like, this has to be like God or something, because like it was like it just came out of nowhere.
Mhm.
But honestly, it was perfect timing because I was, really praying about and believing about like, really trying to get back into the field, because I wanted so badly to be back into the field. So I ended up at Howard, which is almost like coming home, because like I'm a product of an HBCU. So it was almost like,
Mhm.
wow, I really went back home. I came here, the staff are great. Um, and like, we're probably going to get into that, later in the interview, but, you know, the ins and outs of HBCU sports, you have to deal with
Yeah.
those things. But, um, I chose Howard and decided to stick with Howard because, like, number one, I was already familiar with HBCU athletics,
Mhm.
and two, like, it was a shot for me to really build something new here. Not being able to go to any other school or get any other job that I wanted, but it's somewhere that at least, like, if I didn't get to have the chance to really get the experience that I wanted to, that being here would be a great start for me. If that makes sense.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree with the HBCU to HBCU pipeline. Like I'm thinking about it. So it's
Yeah.
definitely on my list. So I read an article by Audrey Walker that describes athletic trainers as the backbones of athletics. So what does being an athletic trainer mean to you specifically?
To me, it means, well, that's a broad question. It means a lot
Nah,
of
nah.
things to me. It means a lot of things to me, but at the core of it, it's being almost like, when you talk about backbone or you talk about heartbeat of athletics, athletics cannot thrive without athletic trainers. Um, and sadly, we live in a society where, there's not many athletic trainer staff at schools, even high
Mhm.
schools, or even like pee-wee sports or things of that nature. But what it means for me to be an athletic trainer is to almost be like the gas that keeps the car going,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So everybody else is like maybe the tire or the engine or the alternator or the driving wheel. Like the 80s, like the driving wheel, but we're literally, you can't go anywhere without gas.
Mhm.
So, we're the fuel that keeps everything going. Like if all else fails, athletic trainers are there,
Mhm.
so in order to keep an athlete on the court, you need an athletic trainer. In order to make sure athletes are hydrated and their bodies are, healthy enough to perform well, you need an athletic trainer. Sometimes we're even counselors. So you're
Yes.
always like that gas, that fuel to keep a department, athletics department, thriving.
Yes. I like that. I like that analogy about the gas. I agree.
Yeah.
So going back into the well, we're going to talk about barriers next. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to ask you, from especially coming from you were in secondary level and then you went to collegiate, what not only what differences have you noticed between both, not only because there are two different levels, but also with it being an HBCU, what have you noticed that is a lot different than other collegiate um, settings?
So first question, going from secondary to collegiate, it wasn't that much of a shock, like a culture shock to me, because like I said, I was already familiar with HBCU athletics, but I
Mhm.
will say the difference is in structure and because like the school I was at, they didn't even have any athletic trainer at all. Like, so it was almost like I was kind of building out something while I was there, like helping out, making sure like, it's almost like everything was like on me. Like I just had to let them know. So it's like, if somebody needs to go see a doctor, like they didn't know who to go to. I honestly didn't know because like I'm new to the area. So it's almost like I said, I had to build rapport with different people and kind of build things out. So it's kind of building from the ground up there, solidifying a foundation. Um, when I came to Howard, HBCU, they already had things in place, but I can also still see where things need to be built out and changed and restructured a little bit and also reinforced because some people can think they can do this one way and then it's like, does that really benefit the department or anything like that? So, just bringing what I carry and the things that I value and how they can benefit the department. So there was already a structure in place. I just wanted to be able to add to it and, the department will benefit it from it in the long run.
Okay. And then, so women face a lot of barriers, period, in life, in the world, and especially in the workforce, and then more specifically in athletic training field. So, do you feel that there are any gender-based discrepancies in the profession of athletic training?
Um, I will say just not even like based on my experience, but I understand that us as women, especially if you want to work with like male sports, um, sometimes you may not get to work with a male sport because, the nature of like, especially, I don't want to say like if you're an attractive woman or anything like that, but like sometimes um, you can't be misjudged, you know, if you work with like male sports. You got to kind of be like a little more careful in how you um, show up and how you are perceived and how you display yourself because like you never want to give the notion that you're that person. you know
Hmm.
you always want to lead with professionalism, and you also have to set up boundaries because then there's going to be some people think that because you're a woman that you're they're going to get over you on certain things, and it's like you have to set and establish boundaries and know and stand on your truth, stand in like what you believe in and stand in what's right, because like we're a little bit more emotional than, honestly, I feel like some men are more emotional than women, but because of the nature of who we are, we're nurturers. um you also have to kind of like differentiate, is this my nurturing stepping in, or like am I just being really emotional in this moment? Like you have to really be in control of your emotions because some things you're going to see it's not going to be right, but you have to make sure that you're truthful and integral. That's the word I'm looking for. Be integral. Because like I said, the odds are already stacked up against you because you're a woman. Like as of recent, there's a lot more women that are um, now going into the NBA and
Hmm.
uh, NFL. Like some of my classmates are actually in the NFL and NBA right now, and they've kind of dealt with some, things being there. But it's all about like you owning who you are and not allowing anybody to put a label on you. Because once that happens, then like you're at the mercy of their opinions, and it's almost like you kind of have to be a chameleon to make people feel better. But just own who you are, stand, and that I don't like using feminine energy, but stand in who you are as that woman, that girl. You're that girl. Like show up as that woman and own it, no matter who you're around, whether you're NFL, NBA, collegiate, or you're doing like male sports. Like stand in that.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
So, okay, in a literature review called The Role of Women in Athletic Training by Leslie Martin, they suggested that there was a lack of female athletic trainers hired into leadership roles at
Mhm.
the Division I setting, because males basically control those positions and basically set the agenda of work policies. So my question to you is, do you feel like there are limitations placed upon women as to what they can accomplish as an athletic trainer? Like, is there a set bar that is very hard to get past?
Yeah. I definitely will say when you honestly look at like professional sports, you look at collegiate D1 sports, that a lot of the leadership roles, as far as like athletic directors and things of that nature, are mostly men. So it makes you think like, okay, why can a woman be in this position? Now, Florida A&M University has changed that because they now have a woman as an athletic director. So it's almost like you have to kind of be twice as good to
Mhm.
really get like these positions where, as you know, males, like it's like, okay, either it's who you know or you probably either had like tenure or something like that to be able to get that kind of a job. But I will say I feel like it's a little bit of limitations because number one, like I said, it's already this thing where we just got women's rights like not too long ago, to be honest.
Mhm.
So we're still even fighting that in society. So I'm not surprised that you will still be fighting that in the workplace. Like we're still not getting as equal as pay as men are, even though we're like the most educated, you know. So yeah, I do feel like there's some limitations, but like I said, it's all about how you rise above those limitations. I was actually having a conversation with someone not too long ago about like what is your value? What do you actually bring to a company, to an organization? Because if you're just going to go there and think, because you're a woman that you deserve this job, no, you know, they know you're a woman. They just want to
Right.
know like, you know, how can you how can you move this organization forward and really do the things that you're going to do and own who you are. I think if you're confident in who you are, then the opportunities will come to you. You may have to work a little harder, like I said, because there honestly there are limitations out there, against women, but you just have to learn how to rise above that and prove your value.
Okay. Um, and so my next topic is basically about mentorship. So
Mhm.
mentorship is extremely important for early career development. I'm a part of a mentoring group that helps athletic trainers or student athletic trainers. And so I was just wondering, was there any mentors that paved the way or guided you through your process of becoming an athletic trainer, especially in this setting where there's not many Black women?
Mhm. I would definitely say when I was at Florida A&M, like I was around a lot of minority athletic trainers. We didn't have as much as they do have now, but
Hmm.
with the ones we did have, they did take the time to like, show me, how to tape an ankle, what to look for in certain injuries. Even we had doctors there that would let me shadow them when they would do evaluations. So that kind of like, made me feel a lot comfortable with going into the profession. But once I got into like grad school, I believe my grad program did have like this peer mentorship program. Um, I honestly say it wasn't always the best. Number one, because you know, being a first year athletic training student, and then like the second year athletic trainers were like kind of like our peer mentors. Sometimes when they're studying for the BOC or they're busy, trying to finish out research, work, because we did a lot of research. I want to say our second year, it wasn't as consistent as it
Hmm.
should have been, um, and so for that, you know, I would say the mentorship has gotten a lot better. It could be better though,
Hmm.
especially you have people who if somebody wants to go into like professional sports, I don't think there's a consistent enough grad school to pro level mentorship, unless you're like going out to reach for like internships, because some people found their mentors in their internships. So that's a good way to, find somebody. But say if somebody doesn't get to go to the internship, then how can they have that mentorship to really go from, grad school and want to go into like pros or anything like that? So I think for the most part, I had to seek out my mentors. You just really kind of have to do the extra work on your end, because, like I said, it's not as consistent because of like, a lot of athletic trainers are leaving the profession. So it's like, it's not as consistent as it should be for helping those who are trying to transition from like grad school to like, going into their field, their actual field, and practicing. So I feel like it's there. It just could be a lot better and, a lot smoother. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think now, especially like with social media, it's a lot easier to find mentors and to find groups, especially after COVID, when we had to really be involved in social media to really talk to people. So I think it has gotten a lot better, and a lot of mentor groups and group chats and stuff have come out of COVID.
Yeah.
So athletic trainers' work schedules can be somewhat unpredictable, as we know how the day happened. And depending on the setting, can go way beyond the normal 40-hour work week. So how do you navigate, the responsibilities as your role as a clinician and regular life responsibilities?
What's crazy? Like, I'll just be transparent. That is something that I have not quite mastered yet. I'm still like walking through that, because like, going from secondary to collegiate, my workload has increased dramatically. But I will say that the way I'm handling it now is that in the moments that I do have to myself, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes out of the day, like I either like just sit down and eat a snack, maybe like look at something on social media or something, or like watch a clip on YouTube, listen to like a song or something like that. I try to find pockets and moments where I can like at least release myself. I also set boundaries. I have athletes. I tell them like, do not call me after hours. Once I leave, don't call me. And you have to. Sometimes I haven't always been good about that, especially in some cases I've had to go beyond the times because of the fact that like I have athletes who may have to like I may have a coach call that may have a concern about an athlete, or I have an athlete that is not sure. Maybe they call me like on an off day and like, hey, I'm going to pick up my prescription. Can you let me know like where I'm supposed to go? So those type of things that I can get out of the way quickly. But I try to be really adamant about like my boundaries, as far as like I don't try to bring my work home. I try to get everything done that I can here, unless I'm like really just wanting to get out of the building. I'll bring like my laptop and just like finish like my injury reports or things at home. But most of the things I do, I try to get it done while I'm here, because I try to be very consistent with not bringing work home, because home is supposed to be a safe haven. It's supposed to be a place of peace and relief. So I try not to bring work home with me. So that's a boundary I set up for myself. And I try to stick to that as the best way I can. And in the days that I do have off, I try not to feel guilty about having a day off. And being in HBCU athletics, when we're already like short staff and under resourced and things of that nature, like I have to trust my coworkers enough to be like, hey, like I have a few athletes that may come by and get treatment. Can you do this? And be okay with that, and just enjoy my day off. I've gotten better with it, but some athletes will still call me. Okay, depending on what it is, it's okay. But I tell them like, hey, go see so and so. She's here. She's in today, and just let me know like what you guys do and how you felt and everything after that. And we also try to communicate that with the other athletic trainers that may be in for that day. Like, hey, I may have an athlete coming in. Please let me know what you do. Write it in the report, and so I can send it off to the coach. just to kind of keep a open line of communication when things like that happen. So days off, I try to at least like not even think about work, go enjoy myself. I want to say my last day off, I had like, I just got a massage, 2 hour massage. I went and bought myself lunch and just went to Target. Like Target, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. It's like sometimes every day after work, either every day or every other day after work, I just take a stroll around Target, maybe grab something to snack on and just walk around. And I don't even care if I don't pick anything up. I just like walk around. That's literally like my time where I just like unwind. I don't know what anybody else's thing, but Target is my spiel. So
Target is definitely a place, especially out there. There's something about the Targets out there. Yeah. So to kind of conclude, I have two more like just general questions for you.
mhm.
So what is one of the biggest lessons you have learned in your journey thus far?
um, whew, wow. My biggest lesson is, and this is something one of my preceptors told me when I kind of share her my story about like, trying to get back into the field and feeling like almost like an imposter because like I was like, man, I haven't been in the field, really that long and consistent, with the gap that I had. And I just kind of felt like an imposter. Like, do I really belong here? Like, what if I don't remember everything I studied? Like, what if I mess up and misdiagnose somebody? Like, I was always thinking about what could go wrong, but I had to like once my preceptor she said something to me once I took the job. She was like, "Don't worry about knowing everything." Um, and I also had to learn to lean on the help that I do have. Like we have doctors, we have physical therapists that work with us in our team, and leaning on them, it allowed even a lot of the things that I thought I forgot literally just came back to me like instantly. I'm like, oh wow, okay, I remember that now. You know, so not being afraid to fail. Like one of my
Mm.
biggest things was that like, man, I might do something that ain't gonna be right. you know but not being afraid to fail, um and giving yourself to fail, giving your looking at failures as an opportunity to grow, and giving yourself grace. This one scripture I always think about, I don't remember the scripture verbatim or whatever, but it's in like the book of John. It talks about when Jesus talked to, if you don't mind me talking about my faith,
You're fine.
right, it was a scripture when Jesus talked to Peter before he was about to be crucified, and he was like, the enemy has come to sift you, but I've already prayed for you that your faith will not fail you. So when you return and when you come back, you strengthen the brethren. So what I got from that was that he never said that Peter wouldn't fail. He said his faith wouldn't. So for me, this journey has been a test not only of my faith, but also just my humanity. Um, so in the moments where I did feel like I failed, I leaned in my faith, because if my faith failed me, everything else will fail. If I have nothing to stand on, then everything else will crumble. So even in those moments where I feel like maybe did I not get this right, or did I do my best with this athlete? As long as my faith didn't fail, I was able to find the best care for an athlete. So if I had an athlete that I felt like that wasn't getting better, or it felt like I tried everything treatment wise, you know either getting imaging, or referring them to one of our physical therapists that can do a little bit more one-on-one with them, um as long as they got the best care, I was okay with that. And I had to be okay with that and not see that as a failure, but as, I'm leaning on my help, and I'm also using wisdom and not trying to overextend myself when I know I did the best I could. So yeah.
Okay. Um, and then the next question is, what advice do you have for someone like me, that is in their early career, starting, in school? You have people that are just getting out, and then I know like my cohort and the cohort above us are all females. So what would you have, like, what advice would you give us?
To you specifically as a female athletic trainer?
Yes, we can say to us specifically as a female athletic trainer. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So, what advice can I give you as a female athletic trainer, either like post grad or getting ready to go into the field?
Yes.
The best advice I can give you is take it step by step. Don't launch out in a way where you're not prepared, and also count the cost. Wherever profession you want to go, whether it's professional, whether it's secondary, whether it's, working with, collegiate, count the cost. Because some people go into certain things because they're like, oh, I want to be in professional sports. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to blaze the trail. And that's fine. But you need to count the cost of what it will take to either get there and sustain yourself there. Because I've seen countless of people get into these professional settings or into even other settings that they said they wanted to go into and burn out quickly. So you have to count the cost. Like I always tell myself and anybody who asks me like for advice, like, know your capacity. Like if you know something exceeds your capacity, it's okay to say that. And then be like, oh, okay, yeah, I may need help in this area. Can you help me with this? Or if you know that you're not mentally, physically, spiritually prepared for a particular profession, do not go into it. And if you do decide to go into it, shadow somebody who's already in the profession so that the transition is much easier. And just know, like, what are you willing to give up to be in this profession? Some days you may not eat until 6:00. Some days, and that's just the nature of, like, depending on where you land, you may not eat until 6:00. You may not eat until 3. But that also has to go back to like your boundaries as well. You really have to be strict on your boundaries because people will try to impose on them. Coaches will try to impose on them. Doctors may try to impose on them. Athletes may try to impose on them. Really stick to your boundaries. And like I said, know your capacity. Know what you can do and can't do. And be okay with what you can't do. You don't have to exceed that because that's where burnout happens. And one thing I will also say, like, because I'm a person that's always a giver, like, there is a such thing as compassion fatigue, like, in this profession. Like, you feel like you're doing so much for other people that you start neglecting yourself. You are no good to anybody unless you're good to yourself. So take care of you first, and then you can, out of the abundance of how you take care of you, you can take care of other people. And I promise you, you will flourish in this profession. It's just a matter of like starting with you, taking care of you, making sure you have a plan in place of where you want to go, what you want to do in like your future. Like, and I know some people will go into the profession and feel like, oh, okay, I just want to kind of explore my options. But I feel like start exploring your options right now. Start talking to the people that you need to be in connection with where you want to land. Start going to conferences. Start going to seminars. Start going to like, going to even like meetings or meetups or anything like that. Try to get your face out there and get connected. Your network will be your net worth. Like whoever, like you have to connect with people. Like I said, it's all about who you know. Like some of the jobs that some of my classmates landed was because of the people they knew and they networked with, and they weren't afraid to really put themselves out there. And you can't be afraid of rejection. You cannot take rejection personal. There's going to be some athletes that may not want to work with you because they're comfortable with working with somebody else, and you have to be okay with that. That doesn't not mean that you're not a good clinician. It just means that, okay, they prefer that person. Some personalities may match with a coach or athlete better than others. So, and sometimes, you may get a nice rebuke from some of the doctors, like, hey, like this wasn't a good idea, and you have to be okay with that. You have to have thick skin. Please have thick skin because you're going to deal with some coaches that may be problematic. You know, that's just the nature and intensity, especially if you work with like football or basketball, things of that nature, sports that are so high demanding. You know, you're gonna have to have some tough skin. You know, not saying that you have to be in a toxic environment. It should not be toxic. No, don't sacrifice your peace or your mental wellness for the sake of a job. Don't ever do that. But there are going to be some moments where you're going to face some adversity, some pushback, some resistance, especially if you are the type of person that is a visionary and you see things where things could change. You got to learn how to be patient and just give yourself grace through this journey. Allow yourself room to mess up. And I'll leave you with this one last thing. A thing, something that my orthopedic professor said something to me in grad school is that you may fail a test, but don't fail the semester. So don't let a moment turn into a week or turn into a month, turn into a quarter or turn into annually or turn into a year. Like manage your moments, manage the high moments, manage the low moments, and just enjoy it. Like enjoy it. And always stick to why you got into this profession. If you don't have a why, I'm telling you, it's gonna be so hard for you to stick it out. Like, don't lose your why. If all else fails, and you know the work environment just sucks, like, don't lose your why of why you went into athletic training. If you stick with that, you'll continue to persevere through it.
Well, thank you for that advice, and thank you for allowing me to interview you. It has been a pleasure to hear your insight and just your opinion on all the questions that I asked you. Um, and with this, I will conclude my MAT chat. So thank you all for watching.